A desolate mountain road. A blood-splattered car. A body lying in a drainage pipe.
The hair did stand up on our necks. You wonder what in the world could have transpired in that person's life for that to have happened.
But the search for answers only plunges the case deeper into mystery.
How did this car come to be here if it was stolen from the man who's now been shot to death? Could this be the motive for this crime? This is an enormous complication.
And when Kenda finally zeroes in on his killer, he discovers not everything is as it seemed.
It was sitting back in amazement. That was an absolute shock to us. When you reach that moment when you know that the truth is about to come, everything slows down, the room gets very quiet. This is the moment you've been waiting for. There's one thing that never changes: murder. A life has been taken. Their stories are now my stories. I'm Lieutenant Joe Kenda. I've solved over 387 homicides. Somebody has to take control. Somebody has to look out for the victim. I never know where a case is going to lead, but I'll never stop until it's solved.
May 27th, 1992. It's a cool night in the Pike National Forest. Chip Reinhardt and his brother Steve have spent an exhausting evening hunting bear in the high mountains.
Hell, it felt like a waste of time.
It was a waste of time.
Empty-handed, they're driving down a steep mountain pass called Old Stage Road.
It was a miserable evening. We were tired and wet and ready to go home.
Chip and his brother round a corner and come across a car parked on the side of the road.
When we pulled up, we were curious initially. It was unusual to see a car there. It just did not feel right from the moment we came across the scene.
It looked like the car was abandoned.
Shining their flashlight at the car, the brothers noticed something red and wet splattered across the hood and windshield.
I don't feel good about this.
When we saw the blood around the scene, the hair did stand up on our necks because obviously it was something bad had happened there. And whatever happened had to have happened very recently.
The brothers can't tell if anyone's inside or lurking nearby, and they don't want to stick around to find out.
We were nervous enough that we got out of there and called 911.
Minutes later, a patrol officer arrives. He approaches the car and quickly determines nobody is inside. But outside is a different story.
There was a blood trail leading from the driver's side of the vehicle to the south over the guardrail.
The trail continues down to the mouth of a drainage tunnel.
There was this 90-some foot drainage culvert that ran under the road, and actually the blood trail traveled further into the culvert.
Shining his flashlight into the darkness, the officer spots something lying deep inside.
Dispatch, I found one in the culvert.
When he confirmed that there was a body in there, you wonder what in the world could have transpired in that person's life for that to have happened.
Dispatch notifies Lieutenant Joe Kenda, homicide detective and head of the Major Crimes Unit.
It's 11:15. It had been a long day at the office, as they often are, and I was ready to leave and go home. And as I started to get up from my chair, the phone rings.
It's Kenda.
And your first thought is, well, I guess I'm not going home, am I? It's time to go back to work.
"20 minutes later, Kenda and one of his detectives arrive on the scene.
The thing that always strikes me the most about homicides, more than anything else, is how quiet they are.
Because there's nothing alive in here.
There's a lot of blood on the hood and the windshield.
And where's the body?
It's in the culvert, sir.
When I looked into the culvert with a light and looked at the victim, there were devastating, large wounds.
We get some uniforms down here to get this body out.
Is there some clever scientific way to do that? No, there isn't. It's get a hold of him however you can and drag him 40 feet out of that culvert, which is exactly what we did.
Once the body is removed from the culvert, the cause of death is painfully clear.
It was obvious to me this was done with a shotgun.
The victim had a major injury to his right hand, to where he lost a large portion of that hand.
The wound to his hand looks defensive.
He also had been shot in the upper abdomen area with, we once again believe it was bird shot from a shotgun.
Help me roll him over.
When they roll the victim over, Kenda discovers a third gunshot wound.
His left leg is severely damaged by shotgun fire to the point of almost amputation.
It's like that wound severed his femoral artery. Probably bled out.
The average adult can withstand about 1 minute and 20 seconds of that level of bleeding before you die from loss of blood.
You got a wallet. Well, there's plenty of cash. Wasn't a robbery.
The wallet also contains an ID.
Ronald Whitlo.
Ronald Eugene Whitlo, and he is 31 years old.
The photo on the license was very consistent with the appearance of the party that we had at the scene, so we were fairly confident we were dealing with the victim identified as Ron Whitlo.
But how did Ron Whitlo end up dead in the middle of nowhere? To answer that question, Kenda turns his attention to the abandoned vehicle.
Around the car, you see 2 expended shotgun shells, and then that makes sense. The expended casings we see are 20 gauge, more than enough to cause enormous damage to a human body.
The car's exterior is splattered with blood, but the interior appears to be clean. To Kenda, the evidence paints a gruesome picture.
Our man is outside the car when he's shot the first time, throwing blood and some human tissue onto the car itself, and also blood on the ground. He then moves to get away from who's shooting at him when he's shot a second time. He continues to run and crawls some 40-odd feet into a culvert to escape.
When Kenda's team runs the car's tags, they come back with a lead.
Lieutenant, it comes back to a Ron Whitlo.
Our victim.
Yes.
Kenda expected that the car would turn out to be Ron's. What's surprising is that Ron reported it stolen just 1 day earlier.
Now this changes everything. If he reported this car stolen, how does he now have it back? Or did he have it back? How did this car come to be here if it was stolen from the man who's now been shot to death? This is an enormous complication. This is the first thing we have to resolve.
According to the police report, Ron Whitlo stated that a friend of his had borrowed the car, but never returned it.
Yeah, who do I need to speak to about reporting a stolen vehicle?
I can help you. I need to see some ID, please.
There you are, sir.
When did this happen?
This happened last night. I loaned it out to a friend.
Ron Whitlo reported it stolen on Tuesday morning after he had loaned it to a friend of his he identified as Brian Signor.
The report says he had another friend whose name is Barbara Wilson, and she was with him when Brian borrowed the car. And he was supposed to bring it back, but he never brought it back.
How long did he say he was going to keep the car?
He's supposed to have it back to me already. Now I can't get a hold of him. I don't know where it's at. I don't know what's going on.
Could this be the motive for this crime? Of course it could. But we have no way of knowing that at this point. We need to learn more about these people.
Kenda has his team run background checks on Brian Signor and Barbara Wilson. It turns out that Brian, Barbara, and the victim all live in the same complex.
Graham, can you get the information from her, please? Thank you.
Everybody is at this same address. So that's where we need to begin first.
How you doing?
Hi, I'm good.
Are you the manager here?
Yes. Yeah, I am.
You have a Ron Whitlo that stays here?
Yeah, he lives over in 1.
We asked the manager what Ron does for a living. She says he's a janitor, but he also does pick up labor jobs at various companies in town that hire day labor people.
Nice guy. Pays his rent.
She described him as a good person and thought that he had a lot to offer and was a friendly person.
How about a Brian Signor and a Barbara?
Yeah, Barbara lives in 2, and Brian lives with Ron.
They live together?
Yeah.
Ron Whitlo and Brian Signor had been living together for the past few weeks after meeting on a construction job.
The manager also says they seem to get along most of the time, but certainly not all the time.
According to the manager, the last time she saw Ron, he had complained about Brian and his friend Barbara taking his car.
She says, I know that they borrowed it and they didn't bring it back, and Ron was really pissed about it.
To Kenda, the stolen car is turning from a mystery to a motive.
Brian, at this juncture, appeals to me as somebody that might be part of Ron's death.
It's a suspicion that only grows when Kenda runs a background check on Brian Signor.
We pull Brian Signor's record, and we find that, yes, he does have an assaultive personality. He has been involved in violent crime in the past. He's served time in jail in the past. I'm in need of a suspect, and right now, Brian will do nicely. You planning on sleeping tonight? Maybe you should stay awake. Guess I'm come looking for you.
Colorado Springs police found 30-year-old Ron Whitlo in a culvert beneath a remote mountain road with a trail of blood leading up to Ron's abandoned car. The vehicle presents Lieutenant Joe Kenda with a baffling clue.
That this car was reported stolen by our victim. How does he now have it back?
The day before he died, Ron told police he had lent his car to his roommate, Brian Signor, and their neighbor, Barbara Wilson. But Brian never returned the car.
I'm thinking that this stolen car has got something to do with this murder. Brian might be part of this and might be part of Ron's death.
When Kenda knocks on the door of the apartment Brian and Ron shared, there's no answer. So he moves on to Barbara Wilson's place.
We, of course, knock on Barbara's door. Nobody's there.
Could you give me a call if any of them come back?
Sure.
I appreciate it.
No problem.
With Brian and Barbara nowhere to be found, Kenda prepares to notify Ron's next of kin. It's a grim task, but one that can serve an important purpose.
You're doing two things. You're explaining to them that they've lost a loved one, but you're also asking for information.
Hello?
Yes, is this Pam?
This is she.
This is Detective Kenda from the Colorado Springs Police Department. Ma'am, I'm sorry I have some terrible news. Your brother Ron was killed.
how do you react when somebody you love dies, you know? I mean, it's not like it wasn't always a worry, but it still hurts. I cried.
Pam is clearly devastated by the news of her brother's death, but it's important for Kenda to glean as much information as he can.
I know this is very difficult, but can you tell me a little bit about Ron?
Ron loved everybody. Everybody was his friend, no matter what. He just opened his heart to everybody and his home.
Ron Whitlo and his 5 siblings grew up in Santa Rosa and Dinuba, California. Their upbringing was far from ideal.
We had a real dysfunctional family. I was the oldest, and he was only 2 years younger than I was. I was not able to protect him like I did my younger sisters and brothers, and so he got the physical abuse and a lot of wrath as well.
She described that he had a past, possibly drug and alcohol problem, but he'd already beat it once, and she was believing that he was actually doing very well.
He was going to AA. He was trying to understand all his anger that he had inside. He wanted a fresh start, so he was looking to settle down, get his life together.
Have you ever heard him talk about a couple of his friends named Barbara and Brian?
No, I've never heard of them. I hadn't seen him in a long time, but I just knew that he was doing really good and he was happy.
She has no direct knowledge of what he's been up to lately, so there's no point in us pressing her for information at this juncture, other than to assure her that we will make every effort to bring the person responsible for this crime to justice.
No sooner has he let go of the handset than it rings.
This is Kenda.
The manager from the motel calls and said, "Hey, Barbara's home. I just saw her pull in. She's in her room."
Great, we'll be right there. Barbara Wilson?
Yes.
I'm Detective Kenda. This is Detective Graham.
Come on in.
We explained to her why we're talking to her.
Ma'am, you know Ron Whitlo?
Yeah, he lives next door.
Unfortunately, the reason why we're here is that Ron was murdered.
Oh my God, what happened?
She's horrified by the death of her acquaintance, Ron.
I understand that you borrowed his car recently.
Yes, Brian offered to take me to get my license so I could work.
She says, "I'm a licensed practical nurse, but I don't have a Colorado license. I just came here from another state, and I needed to go to the Board of Nursing, which is in Denver, Colorado, so I can work."
Brian agreed to drive Barbara to Denver,
That'd probably be the best thing to do.
but he wasn't certain Ron would lend them his car.
Hey man, are you ready to go?
Dude, can we borrow your car? We'll be back by 5. You better be back by 5. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Ron.
But according to Barbara, on the way back from Denver, they lost track of time.
She says, "We stopped at a few bars and we had a couple drinks. Then it was late, and we were past the time when we were supposed to give it back."
She claims when it finally dawned on Brian how late they were, he began to panic.
Why did he get upset? Well, he's afraid of Ron. He said that Ron has a bad temper and Ron would hurt him, maybe, if we took this car back late.
But before Brian had time to make up an excuse, their situation went from bad to worse.
We got stopped by the police for making an illegal U-turn.
Got your driver's license registration handy?
Well, the issue is this is my friend's car.
The officer said, "Well, we got 2 options here. I can impound this car for no registration, no proof of insurance, or you can park it and tell your roommate where it is."
Brian and Barbara had no choice but to park Ron's car on a roadside in the middle of Colorado Springs.
Here, I guess we'll get Stephanie and Trish to come get us.
Yeah, I guess we can do that.
They then walked to a payphone and called a friend who lived nearby.
Hey, is everything okay?
Yeah, everything's fine. They won't let us take the car.
You all right?
Yeah.
We called a friend to get a ride, and we've been kind of avoiding Ron ever since that happened. which is 2 days ago.
And why would you be avoiding him?
Brian said that Ron might be a little upset with us. He can have a bad temper sometimes, and he was a little worried that Ron might hurt him for getting his car back so late.
According to Barbara, she and Brian had no idea that Ron was dead.
They leave the car a short distance from where they live, and they don't see it again, according to Barbara.
So how did the car get from the city all the way to the remote crime scene? Did Ron find it himself?
We know that our victim's car is parked at the old stage road, and we know that it's covered in our victim's blood. We still don't know how it got there.
Nor is it clear where Barbara and Brian went after they abandoned Ron Whitlo's car.
What were you doing on the night of the 27th?
Well, I was with Brian, and we were with Stephanie and Tricia.
Barbara says that until she and Brian could figure out how to explain everything to Ron, they decided to lay low at the home of Stephanie Richardson and her girlfriend Tricia Drew.
They had some friends that lived next door, and they needed to move that night.
What about this one?
So me, Brian, Tricia, and Stephanie all helped this couple move, and we didn't get done until 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning.
I appreciate your help.
I'm so sorry to hear about Ron. Anything that I can do to help.
After speaking with Barbara, Kenda heads back to the office to see if her story checks out.
There's a traffic stop that takes place. We identify who stopped him. We speak to that officer.
How you doing? This is Detective Kenda. A quick question for you. I was told that you pulled over a blue Dodge. The driver was Brian Signor.
He explains the story, pretty much matches Barbara to a T.
The traffic officer confirms Barbara and Brian left Ron Whitlo's car on the street. Now Kenda looks into the rest of their alibi. He starts with Stephanie Richardson and Tricia Drew.
Come on in.
Got a couple of ladies here to see you.
Thank you. Stephanie and Tricia. I'm Detective Kenda, Detective Graham. We just need to ask you a few questions if you don't mind.
We meet Stephanie and we meet Tricia at the same time. They're a lesbian couple that lives together in an apartment.
As a matter of procedure, we need to split you guys up. That's all right?
Yeah.
So if you don't mind going with Detective Graham. Have a seat. Can you tell me what you were doing on the night of May 27th?
Yeah, me and Stephanie were helping some neighbors move.
Can you tell me who all was there?
It was Tricia and me, and then our friends Brian and Barbara.
And about how long were you guys out there, from what time to what time?
I think we got together around 8.
And you finished up?
Wow, probably not until like 1 a.m., I would say. It was late.
They both independently of each other say that they were helping their neighbors move.
Stephanie and Tricia's statements seem to corroborate Brian and Barbara's alibi.
If this is all true, they're not killing our victim, they're with these women. That puts us into a different arena.
Just like that, Lieutenant Kenda has gone from having 2 potential murder suspects to having none at all.
Homicide investigation is a series of highs and lows. You get very high and then you get very low when things aren't working, and right now things aren't.
It won't be long before the investigation reaches new heights. Only this time, it will take Kenda in a completely unexpected direction. Lieutenant Joe Kenda is investigating the shooting of 30-year-old Ron Whitlo. A dispute over Ron's car indicated neighbor Barbara Wilson and roommate Brian Signor might be responsible for the crime. But both Barbara and Brian have been scratched from the suspect list.
Brian's out, Barbara's out, everybody's out.
Absent any credible leads, Kenda turns to his former prime suspect for help.
We go to where Brian is working.
Brian?
Yeah.
Detective Kenda.
Hi.
We say the usual question, well, what do you think happened here? Somebody wanted Ron dead. Why would that be true? He says, I don't know. I saw some guys that Ron had some heated exchanges with verbally.
Do you know why he was having these altercations?
He owed a lot of guys money from buying drugs.
So Ron was into drugs?
Yeah.
Brian comes forward with the specter of narcotics. He says, well, Ron used coke. You mean cocaine? Yeah.
Brian explains that Ron had recently backslid and had begun abusing narcotics again. He also claims Ron bought most of his drugs on credit, but didn't always get around to paying for them.
What's going on, man? Looking to see if maybe you could front me some?
Front you some?
Yeah.
I tell you what, I'm gonna go ahead and give it to you, but by the end of the week, I need all of my every bit of it.
Oh yeah, man, you know I'm good for it. Thanks, bro.
You think back to that crime scene. Okay, the car's facing downhill, as if it's expecting a car to drive up from town to meet. Is he expecting to be paid, and Ron has no money, and it results in gunfire? Criminals, if they can't get the money, they'll take your blood. They're making a statement to other people that owe them money. Is that what happened here?
Kenda presses Brian to tell him who Ron's dealers were, but he says he doesn't know.
You know who would be Stephanie. She would know.
Why would Stephanie know?
Her and Ron did drugs together.
He says, well, Stephanie's a user. No, we didn't know that. Yeah, and that's why Stephanie and Ron, I think, are kind of friends, because I think they use together.
All right, well, thank you for your help.
All right. Thank you.
Intent on tracking down Ron's cocaine dealers, Kenda pays Stephanie Richardson a visit at the home she shares with her girlfriend, Trisha Drew.
Steph, I need to ask you a few more questions. Do you mind stepping outside?
Sure.
Stephanie, I need you to tell me about you and Ron doing drugs.
I don't do drugs.
Oh, I don't know anything about drugs. Into denial.
I don't know if Ron does drugs, but I don't.
Stephanie, this is a murder investigation. I don't care about the drugs.
What I care about is how it relates to why Ron is no longer with us. So let's start over again. Stephanie starts to cry a little bit. Well, I have bought drugs with him before, really. How shocking.
Stephanie admits that she and Ron used drugs together on multiple occasions in the past week. In fact, that's what they were doing the last time Stephanie ever saw him.
She says, look, I did drugs with him the night before he was killed.
It's good, isn't it?
You ever mention any of the names of the people he was getting them from?
No, I've just driven him there.
Stephanie says she always stayed in the car when Ron made a purchase. She insists she never got a good look at his suppliers.
All right, thank you.
Stephanie is a dead end.
Now, we, the police, have excellent intelligence information on people in the drug business. We also know enough people that are in that business to be able to approach them. Now, if you're a guy who steals money and or drugs from people in the drug business, you are instantly widely known. Everybody knows who you are, and they either avoid you to not do business with you, or they point you out to their associates as to where you are at the moment, so someone can recover their money, drugs, or blood. So we get into that drug world a little bit, into the drug culture with our informants. And nobody ever heard of Ron Whitlo. Don't know anything about Ron. Don't know anything about the motel where he lives. Don't know anything about an old blue car. They don't know nothing about nothing. And they would know. They absolutely would know if what Brian is telling us is anywhere close to true.
Kenda needs to find someone who can give him a fresh perspective, and as luck would have it,
this is Kenda.
He gets a call from a new source, a woman named Julie Pahoviak, who claims to be Ron's girlfriend.
So let's go see what she has to say.
Julie?
Yeah.
I'm Detective Kenda, and this is Detective Ritz.
Hi, nice
Do you
to
mind if we
meet
come
you.
in and talk to you?
Come on in.
Julie is very upset about his death, was very concerned about what might have happened to him. She described him as a nice guy. She liked him a lot. He was always nice to her.
We were dating.
Julie says that Ron had been staying with her the last 2 nights of his life, ever since Brian had borrowed his car.
Can you tell me how he found his car?
He didn't find his car. He was still really upset because he didn't know where it was.
He had no idea where it was. That's what he talked about. He still couldn't find it.
Ron was forced to rely on Julie for transportation, but Julie wasn't the only one lending him a helping hand.
His friend Stephanie was helping him out too.
Can you tell me the last time Stephanie was here?
Wednesday?
Which, as Kenda knows, was the night Ron Whitlo was killed.
Are you positive it was on Wednesday?
Yeah, it was Wednesday.
Julie's information contradicts the story Stephanie told Lieutenant Kenda just hours earlier.
Julie says Stephanie's with Ron the night he is murdered. What does Stephanie say? Stephanie says she didn't see him at all the night he's killed. And from 8 o'clock at night until 1 o'clock in the morning, she and all of her friends are helping the neighbors move.
What's going on?
Hey.
Well, my, you lying little...
Lieutenant Joe Kenda is investigating the gruesome murder of 30-year-old Ron Whitlo. At first, Kenda suspected that Ron's roommate, Brian Signor, shot him after stealing Ron's car. Until Brian's friends all vouched for his alibi.
All said that they were actually helping a friend of theirs, neighbors, move from one location to another location. And the timeline they gave us overlapped the murder timeline.
But after speaking with Ron's girlfriend, that alibi has been called into question. She claims that Ron's drug pal, Stephanie Richardson, picked him up at her house the night of the murder.
Oh, thanks again for the ride.
Oh, no problem.
When Stephanie and Brian were supposedly moving furniture.
Stephanie was part of the primary focus of our investigation at the time.
Detectives haul Stephanie back down to the station where Kenda is waiting for her.
Whenever you're talking to an individual that you know is lying to you, then it's a process of ratcheting up the pressure. You want her to become distressed.
Stephanie, I don't like when people lie to me. In fact, it really pisses me off.
I haven't lied about anything.
At first, Stephanie denies the accusation.
This isn't a game. You said you didn't see Ron at all that night.
I didn't.
We have a witness that saw you pick him up at 8:45.
You could see in her demeanor where she became very withdrawn, scared, almost like building her own little wall to try to keep us out.
That's when Kenda goes in for the kill.
We tell her, Stephanie, we probably have enough to put a case together on just you. If you're not the person responsible for killing this guy, you better come across with who is.
Kenda is bluffing, but it's a bluff that elicits the desired effect.
She says, I will tell you the truth, but I want to talk to Trisha, my lover, first. What does that mean? I don't know.
Kenda has a problem. Stephanie's girlfriend, Trisha Drew, might advise Stephanie to keep her mouth shut. But if Trisha's presence is comforting, it might encourage Stephanie to come clean. If he's going to pressure Stephanie to talk without Trisha being there, he's going to have to read her Miranda rights, which means taking her into custody.
There's no way to predict what someone will do when you advise them of their rights. There's just no way to predict that. They could invoke, and if they do, your opportunity at some level of truth is gone forever. Once they invoke right to counsel, you can't ever question them again, ever. I'm unwilling to risk that at this point. I am more interested in the truth than I am in anything else. Let's find out what the motivation was behind this crime and who might be involved in it. Why does she want to talk to Trisha? Well, I don't know why, but I'd sure like to know.
I'll be back.
Within the hour, Kenda has located Trisha Drew.
Trisha looks emotional, but when she sees Stephanie, she almost starts to cry immediately because she can see how upset Stephanie is.
All right, here's the situation. No one's under arrest. You two are free to leave at any time.
You don't have to talk to us. You are free to go at any time. Do you understand that? You are freely willing to cooperate and tell us what you know about this death.
If you know something about what happened, I think it'd be best if you did talk to us and tell us.
I didn't want to be any part of this in the first place. Can we please just tell me?
Stephanie tells Trisha she had always known that sooner or later they'd get caught.
We say we'd like to interview you separately so that there's no confusion between who is saying what.
All right, Stephanie, have a seat. Detective Graham will be in. And Tricia, you come with me.
So we interview Stephanie in one interrogation room and Trisha in another.
Kenda has his detectives run the interviews so he can supervise both from an observation room.
When you reach that moment when you know that the truth is about to come, everything slows down, the room gets very quiet. This is the moment you've been waiting for.
So do you have something you want to tell me?
Stephanie says it all began 2 weeks ago when she was partying with Ron and his roommate Brian Signor at the apartment where they lived.
I would hang out with Ron and we did cocaine in his room, and Brian was there too.
Stephanie claims that at some point during her visit, Brian left to go see a girl he was dating, leaving Stephanie alone with Ron.
All right, man, I'm out of here.
You gone?
Got a chick to see. All right, see you, Stephanie.
See ya.
How you doing?
Yeah. When he left, it was fine. I didn't think anything of it. But then he started coming on to me.
Doing good?
Oh, stop, please.
Come on.
No, please, really, stop. Ron started raping me, and he did it at knife point.
She said that he raped me at knife point and gave me an STD. Well, there's a piece of news.
Kenda is floored by Stephanie's revelation. Instead of car theft, is it possible the motive for Ron Whitlow's murder is actually revenge?
It was sitting back in amazement and saying, wow, this was a lot more involved than we thought, wasn't it?
Lieutenant Joe Kenda is investigating the shooting death of 30-year-old Ron Whitlo. At first, Kenda suspected that Ron might have been murdered over an argument related to his stolen car. But he's just learned some shocking information from Stephanie Richardson.
She said that he raped me at knife point and gave me an STD. Well, there's a piece of news.
The next day felt horrible.
Stephanie said that she then felt compelled to tell Trisha what happened.
I tried to push him away and he wouldn't stop. He pulled out a knife and he forced himself on me. I couldn't make him stop.
What do you mean? Like, you're telling me that he raped you? Oh my God, what?
She told Barbara, told Brian what had happened. And Trisha said we should call the police. But Barbara and Brian said, we're going to take care of this another way. What other way did you mean, Stephanie? We're going to kill him. Wow.
From his observation room, Kenda listens as both Stephanie and Trisha explain how they met Barbara and Brian at a local bar, where they and their two friends strategically plotted to murder Ron Whitlo.
I mean, how would we even do something like that?
We've got his car. We know he wants it back.
They decide they're going to go get it, and they're going to drive it up to the old stage road. And Stephanie is going to bring Ron up there, telling Ron that she has found his car. In reality, Brian Signor, Barbara Wilson, and Trisha Drew were going to be waiting at this location in ambush to kill Ron.
According to Stephanie, on the afternoon of May 27th, the group put their plan into action, all except Barbara, who backed out at the last second. Brian and Tricia picked up Ron's car from where Brian had been forced to abandon it.
They have the victim's car. They drive to the old stage road, they park the car, they get out and hide behind the rocks.
Meanwhile, Stephanie picked Ron up at his girlfriend Julie Pahoviak's house on the pretense that they were going to score some cocaine.
Thanks again for the ride.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah, my guy's just like right up the road here, so
Oh.
it won't take too long.
Well, actually, I was thinking I could take you to your car if you want to go ahead and get it.
She said Brian had been too scared to return it to Ron himself, so he'd told her instead.
I can take you and get it now if you want.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Stephanie pulls up with Ron, as expected. Ron is excited to see his car. And Brian immediately stands up.
When Ron saw Brian pointing a double-barreled shotgun at his chest, he threw his hands out in front of him in a hopeless attempt to shield himself.
What did I do?
Brian immediately shoots him with a shotgun. Ron turns and tries to run, and Brian shoots him again.
The second shot hit Ron in the leg from behind. Ron staggered, but made it to the side of the road. That's when Stephanie says she saw Tricia step forward with a pistol.
Brian yells at Tricia to shoot him. Stephanie says she sees Tricia pull up the gun and pull the trigger, but the gun doesn't go off.
Shooting!
It's jammed!
By this time, Ron had made it over the guardrail and down the embankment. Panicking, he crawled into the culvert. Brian ran down after him, while Tricia covered Ron's exit.
Stephanie sees Brian kneel down by the culvert and fire a third shot. She says that then they come back up out of the ravine, Trish and Brian, and they get in her truck.
It's a horrifying dual confession, and for Kenda, a stunning one.
For them to come out with that was an absolute shock to us. We know that Brian did not conspire alone to kill this individual, but 4 people did, 3 women and a man, to kill Ron, supposedly over a sexual assault.
It wasn't the kind of thing that was a spur of the moment. These are people who had really thought this out and really made their plans that they were going to take care of this guy.
Following Stephanie and Tricia's statements, Kenda sends his men out to arrest Brian and Barbara.
We found Brian at his motel room, and we found Barbara at her motel room. Neither one wanted to make a statement and invoked their right to remain silent.
As for Stephanie and Tricia, Kenda has no choice but to let them go, at least for now.
We certainly didn't know they were going to self-incriminate. But we made a deal, and we stuck to it. You may go. We'll be in touch with you when we discuss this with the district attorney. And we released them.
Brian Signor is charged with first-degree murder. Barbara Wilson is charged with conspiracy to commit murder.
We ultimately charged Tricia and Stephanie with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit same.
What we do is get all our ducks in a row so when we make the arrest, we're ready to go to court. Because you have a certain amount of time between the arrest and getting it into court under speedy trial or whatever, and we want to make sure we're not running and jumping trying to answer questions we should have answered beforehand before making the arrest. So in this particular case, the arrest was made when we felt that we had all the information that we really needed to ensure a successful prosecution of both Tricia and Stephanie for the crime.
They had resigned themselves to this. I think they resigned themselves to it before they ever made a statement. They couldn't live under the pressure. The pressure had to go away.
Barbara Wilson pleads guilty and is sentenced to 14 years. Trisha Drew and Stephanie Richardson also plead guilty and are both sentenced to 16 years. Brian Signor, the only one who didn't confess and was tried by a jury, is convicted of conspiracy to commit murder and accessory to murder. He is sentenced to 24 years. In the end, no one knows for certain if there is any truth to the rape allegations Stephanie Richardson made against Ron Whitlo.
We said to her, you said he raped you at knife point and this is the motivation for this crime. Yes. So I gotta ask you, Stephanie, you're hanging out with this guy. You are with him on several occasions after he supposedly raped you at knife point. Why would you be around him alone if he had forced himself upon you? She couldn't explain that. Of course she couldn't. If you're the victim of a violent crime, are you going to go over to the offender's house and make him breakfast the next morning? No, you're not. You're going to call the police. You're going to go buy a gun. You're going to do something. But you're not just going to hang out, which is what she was doing. Which is why I never believed that a sexual assault ever took place. I think sex took place, but not a sexual assault.
To this day, Ron Whitlo's family believes the rape allegations are untrue.
There's no way. I mean, I know him. He's my brother. I honestly believe there was sex between Ron and Stephanie Richardson. I believe it was consensual, but the only answer she had for her lesbian lover was rape.
The one thing that is certain is that 4 individuals decided to take the law into their own hands, collectively acting as Ron Whitlo's judge, jury, and executioner.
Ron Whitlo dies because he meets a group of self-righteous vigilantes. The law doesn't permit that for a very good reason. What level of authority has God bestowed upon you that you now have the power of life and death based on your emotions, based upon a single accusation by a person of questionable character? A mixture of all of that together puts Ron in a culvert on the old stage road.